Paul, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you.
And so straight up, I'm just gonna throw to you and you can introduce yourself.
So my name is Paul Schwartz, and by profession, I am a classical pianist, and that's how I make my living. But I've been starting to get a lot more interested in sort of delving deeper into psychology, philosophy, human growth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that sort of like bled into working with other musicians in terms of a lot of the work that I've learned, um, dealing with fear, dealing with fucking up, dealing with stage fright, dealing with perfectionism. Um, Not saying I have the answers, but I've been I think I've been able to help a bit with some of the people that I've been working with, and that's honestly more of the work that I'd like to do as opposed to the performing. I do a lot of performing, and it's to be honest, it's getting a bit old. It's getting tiring.
Mm.
So I really enjoy the one-on-one work and just enjoying spending time with somebody else and digging deep and having a just having a nice conversation. And typically I enjoy that over good food. But um but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, great. So I hear there's a transition afoot for you at
I
some
think
level.
so.
Yeah. So talk to me about your journey. So you're a classical pianist or just
Yeah.
pianist? Classical.
Yeah. Classical
So
pianist.
the journey of um, nurturing that skill, that gift throughout your life. What have you seen in that world that requires you to be a certain way?
Hmm. I think it's I would say it's pretty much like anything else in the sense of um if someone wants to do quote unquote their best, if I want to use those terms, I think self-growth work is imperative. And I mean, I think that I think we tend to, I'll speak from a musician's perspective, at least a lot of the musicians that I work with, it seems to me from my perspective that they think they can sort of separate out who they are in everyday life as who they are as musicians. So for example, if I have a fear of vulnerability, that fear of vulnerability is not necessarily going to just disappear when I get on stage. And I think a lot of musicians somehow think that won't affect what they do with music making. So I think it's like anything else. I mean, I think if we're not being authentic, if we're not operating from a space of integrity, I mean, as the saying goes, what's that saying? The way we do one thing is the way we do all things. So it's sort of like that. If we're coming from integrity, we're coming from integrity. Period. So that's the way I look at music making. And I mean, definitely, I didn't come from that. I mean, I came from being obsessed with it, from being again a perfectionist, from being so frightened of screwing up. And but I finally like realized what my motivations were for even choosing music. And those were I'm not I'm not being hard on myself about it, but they were to be validated, to be seen, to be loved. All those reasons. It was so little about music making. It was about me. So it's like so if we don't uncover that, then obviously then we're a puppet to those, strings pulling us, the strings of perfectionism, the strings of, I want you to like me. When we have those subtle agendas, it how can it not affect what we do?
Perfect. Yeah, I hear that the subtle agendas of wanting to be perfect and master an instrument and how that plays out in our life. Like when we're trying to do something or take on an aspect of ourselves that we're not ready to embody. So we're split. There's like an integrity split of like, cool, I need to be over here, but I'm really actually over here.
Yeah.
And there's so many instruments to choose from. And the piano, when I think of the piano, I think around it's very control. There's an element of control. There's all the keys. There's a strict limit of ranges that you can go to, and certain key combinations that you can use to take somebody somewhere, like in their body and in their emotions. So mastering the piano for you, where did you see this transition between there's something that I've learned in mastering this skill that I can now show other people what else is available to them.
I think a lot of it has been My big thing, which I'm still exploring and I don't have the damn answer to, is, I mean, how do we make music? I mean, how do we truly make music? How do we communicate? How can we be a pure vessel? You know, um how can we communicate that in which we're feeling, and being the interpreter, and do that in a way that doesn't get in the way of that translation. And I mean, again, I'm not saying it's that I've explored everything, but I think a big thing is we need to embody that in which we're wanting to communicate. So for me, I won't say I've developed a bit of a sort of structured something, but I sort of have. But really, it's moment to moment. It's life. It really is life. I mean, it's moment to moment to moment, you know, being with the unfolding of what is. And what I mean by the unfolding of what is the music that's happening, the music that I'm playing moment to moment to moment. I'm not a composer, so I'm always performing other people's works, but it's however I interpret that, however I feel that comes through me. And I feel like the only way that I can share that is if I am that. So that's sort of what, you know, if I want to say closer to mastery. Um, you know, but that's my real bugaboo, is exploring that, and seeing if I can even push the edges of that. Like, what does it really mean? So I sort of take a little bit from mirror neurons, you know, that whole idea of in neuroscience. And so but then again, it's like, how do we really know that they're getting it or they're not getting it?
Mm.
So it's again, it's an ongoing process, but that's what I'm sort of playing with.
Yeah, yeah, I hear this embodiment piece coming through you. So when you're playing something, and like I know when a guitarist plays something, they tend to like do weird mouth movements like this,
Mm.
like that, and like
Yeah.
really getting into like a riff. And then for you, like in your embodiment of when something's coming through you, like what comes through your body? Like what are the other mannerisms that come through you when you're really in a piece?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm actually, I would say, I mean, if I'm trying to be as objective as possible, I'm pretty quiet. And I mean that, you know, I mean that bodily in a way. But you know, if something definitely touches me, you know, I'm sure the grimace, you know, the angst, you know, it that's translated, it's translated here. If you know, if you could see what I'm doing with my hands, it's translated that way. It's like you're really caressing the keys, and or again, if you're banging the shit out of the piano, because there's this huge orchestral, like, you know, chords, and it's angry, you know. So it's definitely, I mean, I'm actually really curious. I mean, it is a great question, because I'm really curious actually how I'm seen, because I don't know. I really don't know. And I probably don't record, I don't record myself maybe as much as I should to really see. But that's how I would say, like, the grimace, the like the, you know, sort of like the making love, you know, like the bedroom eyes, you know, that kind of a thing, I would say.
Yeah, beautiful. I've got another thing for you. So say I was a musician who's extremely talented, and I've been practicing in my room for years, and now but I need to take this onto the stage. Like I need to perform in front of people, just by myself, just solo at the moment. And what kind of preparation would you say to me to like prepare myself to be vulnerable, right? To not just go up there and call, I'm just playing a piece by myself on stage. It's like, no, I'm actually wanting to connect with an audience.
These are good questions. I appreciate this. I mean, well, let me get some ground basics
Great.
first.
Yeah.
How established are you at your instrument? I mean, are
Okay,
you?
great. All right, great. So let's say I'm 3 years in. I'm quite comfortable like reading. I can read sheet music really easily. I'm confident to do my own solos. I'm confident to express what's coming through my fingers. I'm comfortable in that in my room. And what else
But
do you need?
this is like one of the like like a first sort of solo performance out there.
First solo out there, yeah. One of my friends has said, "Oh, John, you're amazing. Like, why don't you go and do this thing? I'll hook you up to play at a bar, my local bar. I know that the pub owner. He's more than happy to have you out there. So yeah, this is it.
I mean, the first thing that comes through me, and it's so bloody cliche, is I would just say to be as much in the moment as you can. And then again, I would probably add, I mean, one of the techniques that I sort of try to use with people, especially when there's a lot of rumination and there's a lot of like self-braiding, thoughts going on, is literally using music making as a mindfulness practice, in the sense of thought comes through, breath, bringing yourself back to moment, bringing yourself back to what you're actually doing. And I probably would recommend something like that if they notice a lot of self-talk, a lot of, doesn't even matter if it's negative self-talk, but a lot of self-talk, just breath. That is probably what I would. And then maybe if I had to throw in something else, but not wanting to overwhelm them, I would probably just say, feel what you feel and simply be that. Yeah, be that. Anger comes through, be anger. Bliss comes through, be bliss. Mystery comes through, be mystery. Just allow you to be the unfolding.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I can feel that too. I just allowing myself, if I'm anxious, just be anxious. If I'm
Yeah,
afraid, just be afraid.
yeah,
Like I can feel the temptation to want to like, I'll have a drink. I'll have a drink beforehand,
yeah.
Just a quick shot of something, to eat to calm my nerves. And what would you say to like a muso that does find like they need something like a stimulant or something to kind of get them on stage or get them into flow?
Hmm. I mean, I can't say it's something I recommend personally. I mean, I've tried it, but it hasn't. I haven't found that it's been helpful. I mean, I tried Inderal. I tried beta blockers. No, I'm lying. I've tried other things. But I can't say that I feel like they've been really that helpful. It's a tough one, because I mean, it's the same thing like sort of talking to somebody who's depressed. It's a process like anything, and you don't, of course, you don't want to throw a quick fix, but at the same time, you want to be supportive, and they might need that support to get through to the next step. So I would probably just try to encourage, if they really did feel via gut instinct to do that, that to explore all the other aspects, whether it's psychological, philosophical, spiritual, all the other components of that, so that they could, again, come from a place of unadulteration.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. What I hear in that is, if you're having this stage fright stage fright issue, becoming aware of what options are available to you, from
Yeah,
being in the breath, from maybe you do need some kind of stimulant supplement, or a beta blocker or something, and then see if it works for you, and be honest with yourself if it works for you.
yeah.
And if it does work for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, then well, put it down and try something else, because there is something that's going to work for you. You just got to find what it is.
Yeah. Even though I do think, like, I know a lot of people that have not explored the options that are available, and they simply want the quick fix. A lot of orchestral musicians, I mean, top-notch orchestral musicians, use beta blockers. And I feel like, for me, it made my playing feel very sterile.
Right.
It made me just feel, I don't know, probably too much in control in a way.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, I hear there's a containment. There's so much wanting to come through you and through the instrument, or out in there, out to your audience. There's like, I can't contain this, so like let's numb it so I can control it. But then the cost, what I'm hearing, the cost is like you're not only are you muting your creative expression, like you're muting like a section of yourself, like who you are and what you
Oh
can be,
yeah,
your deliverable. Well, I'm getting goosebumps right now just speaking to this. Like there's if the top tier performers are limiting what their potential is, like what it would be
yeah,
like if they could be unleashed and just be everything that they are in the moment.
yeah. Yeah, but there's such. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's really. I mean, when you think about like top orchestral jobs and those positions, and literally, I mean, there is such projection put upon them to be perfect players, and again, these guys are, that's what they're striving for, and really nothing much beyond that. Of course, this is my limited perspective in terms of a lot of the ones that I know. Not to say that they're not great musicians,
Totally.
but I mean, but I mean, in that context, in that capacity, it's really like, I mean, they have to almost play note perfect.
Yeah.
So
Wow. My heart, I can feel this, my heart contracting. There's like a lot of anxiety in me right now. Like they have to get it right. You have
yeah,
to get it right. And like
yeah,
and people are listening for you to get it wrong. Right? So your default is, yeah, cool. We expect you to get it perfect, but if you get it wrong,
yeah,
you're going to hear about it.
yeah, yeah. And,
Wow.
and I mean, I've dealt with that a lot. I mean, that's one of the things that I had to really deal with my own fear in terms of. I mean, once I sort of tore through the layers, the top layer was I'm scared to fuck up, but the bottom layer was I'm scared to die. So I mean, that's really, I mean, like the unconscious part of that was really fear of death. But the quote unquote conscious superficial aspect was I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want people to think I'm not good.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I love that we've segued into death. This is perfect. It's like what I hear is being able to step up into your performance and knowing that you could die on stage at any moment. You could die. This is like I could fuck up right now, but I know I've got the skills. I've practiced. Like I'm giving it my all right now. Here's the moment I've been training for. Here's my moments I've been training for. 'Cause yeah, when I relax into, yeah, I could die right now. I could something could break on my instrument. A page could fall off, whatever. Like I could
yeah,
sneeze, I could like
yeah.
pass gas or something, like there's this the
Anything goes.
anything goes, just the human meat suit. And
Yeah,
I could die right now. Wow. And how that impacts your reputation, right? It sounds like
big.
reputation is like you got to have the primo reputation.
Yeah, yeah.
What's
I mean,
the you go.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
Well, like what's the relationship between like the conductor and the choice of musician? Does he have any say? Is it any, how do you even get selected for something like this?
Well, I play with the opera. That's one of my gigs is playing with the opera. So occasionally I do play in the pit. I do play in the orchestra. The conductor is basically the man. I mean, the conductor basically says whatever goes. You don't really have a say. You're playing what's on the page. Again, you're playing the notes where they're supposed to be played in the right rhythms, and you're following God. That's really, I mean, because he's singers are up here on stage, the pit is below here with the orchestra. He's controlling all that,
Mm.
literally all of that. I mean, it's all weighing on him. So there maybe in orchestral playing, I mean, like, not opera. He still is the guide. Ultimately, he's the inspiration. But that's the thing about orchestral playing that I'm not really. And if you listen to orchestral players, there is a bit of that sterility. There is a bit of that, like, I don't have my own agency. I don't have my own volition. It's sort of like I'm handing it over, it's like your will, thy will be done.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
sort of what it is. So, and it's definitely that with opera.
Wow, wow, wow. And I hit the pressure on him as well, the conductor, to
Oh my
perform and
God.
be perfect. Wow.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. Cause I mean, things could easily fall apart if he's not on top of his game. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, just hearing you speak those words, like I'm visualizing myself as a conductor and like having all this, the pressure and the weight of whatever like the executive producer, the director, all the singers and then all the orchestral stuff. Like everyone's relying on me to like guide
Yeah.
this thing, like pilot this ship. The pre preparation to come up out on stage. Am I dressed correctly? I got people behind me. Everyone's watching me as well. Like
Yeah.
wow, like this, my back is like I can just feel my back is like cramping up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. So how do it sounds like really high pressure type lifestyle.
Yeah.
How do people relax? Like how do people connect into themselves again and let loose?
Again, another good question. I mean, well, actually, I want to throw in this is my lightly held theory, and because of the knowledge that you have, you probably can either attest to this or call me out on it. I've noticed how, and I don't know if this falls across the board in terms of like whatever vocation or job people choose to do or career, but I've noticed a lot with musicians, but I would say mostly conductors. It's almost like we're trying to maintain a level of neurosis. And it's like we try, it's almost like, again, maybe unconsciously, we choose our profession that allows us to maintain that neurosis. So it's like, I mean, you wouldn't believe the control freaks that are conductors. They are. I'm not joking. I mean, it is such a real thing, and you can. I mean, because I am pretty perceptive. It's like their neurosis drips. Like that's how at least that's how I pick it up. It's oozing. Um. So and I'm sure, again, you can attest or not, in terms of people even, being therapists, and again, people working out their own, neurosis and projections and everything like that with other, um, and so, but in terms of letting go, God, I think that is a very individual thing. But I mean, therapy has helped me immensely. I mean, therapy has like been such a godsend. But honestly, it's really just doing the things that I love. Like I picked up, actually, a conductor introduced me to coffee roasting, and I've started to roast my own coffee now. And it's like been a total game changer for me. Not only in terms of like, oh my God, I am spoiled. Like I can't drink coffee now at a coffee shop, basically, because the coffee that I make at home is so damn good. But it's like a meditation, like listening for
Mm.
first crack, watching the beans change. I mean, it's like, so that's one of my releases.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I hear the ritual. I hear ritual, a ritual that's just your own, in
Yeah,
your own time, in your own space, that guides you back into yourself, like your own little world, like of okay, this is me.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm coming back into Paul. Great. I'm coming back into Paul. Great, great. You hear that first crack, that waft, the cream,
Just being with that,
being
just
with
being
all
with all
that.
that. Yeah,
And in
yeah,
regards to your vocation choice and your predicament, but it's another word. Your predication. There's a word I'm looking for. It's not there right now.
it's all
Yeah,
good.
it is. I do see that where someone will choose a job where they can act out their neuroses or act out whatever their childhood injury was that allows them,
Mm,
that amplifies and supports their defense. And then you can use that job as a shield to justify like your level of control or your neurosis or whatever it is. So you have it's a kind of release and acknowledgement of who you are. Like I'm accepted here in my neurosis, right?
mm,
But then
mm.
what's really showing up in the body and your relationships is that it doesn't translate, right? So deep down there is because they'll be fighting against this neurosis, right? There'll be discomfort there around, no, I have to be perfect. I have to like making sure that the clothing is perfect and everything is perfect and my speech is eloquent and my enunciation is just as perfect.
Yeah,
And then when it comes to relationships, when somebody's not perfect, like can they be with that? Can they be with someone who mirrors the opposite of their neuroses, whatever their challenges are?
yeah.
And
That's a really good point.
it'll all show up in relationships. It'll all show up, whatever it is, whatever the overlap is with your defenses and your vocation will always show up in your relationships.
Mm, interesting. I like also what you said, almost like how some people could use it as a justification to like sort of maintain that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and it lasts for as long as the person needs to, like a crutch as well, to discover who they really are at the core. Like it lasts for as long as the body can take the tension in it
Mm,
and whatever facilities that they use to return to some level of homeostasis in themselves. Like after
mm.
a show, they might go and put their feet up or whatever it is, have a drink or go out and party or go find themselves like a humiliatrix or a dominatrix. Like, now I can
Yeah,
let go of control. Like, yeah, cool. You be in charge of me now. You show me
yeah.
how I can just let go of control, and I know I'm safe with you in this environment. But just to let it
Mm,
out. Otherwise, the body almost buckles under the brittleness of how much
yeah.
control and rigidity that you need to maintain.
Mm. I like that.
So you say
That almost
you go. No, please you
that
go.
almost that almost leads me to a question. I mean, which it's involved in a relationship, but it's almost like it's a question. It would be a question posed to you that I've been curious about. And again, not that there's one definitive answer, but I hear so much in regard to relationship and the whole polarity thing, the whole masculine feminine thing. I fully own. It irritates me. But this whole idea of like the masculine should lead. So like I'm segueing, and you didn't ask me to do this, just letting audiences know you did not ask me to do
This
this,
this is perfect. This is perfect. Yeah.
but I'm very about that, like why there seems to be this pattern, this huge pattern that I have definitely experienced myself, and I've seen a lot, that there is this projection onto the masculine, that this is the role of, and again, I also have issue with the genderization of, if that is a word, of this so-called energy. But yeah, I'm very curious about that, because I think when you started hitting on, like, let's say conscious kink in terms of the dominatrix, and okay, this is my way to unravel, this is my way of letting someone else take the reins, which again, as a practice, I think can be a beautiful thing, again, in a conscious way. But yeah, curious about how your perspective on that, with just seems like to be such this pattern.
Yeah, I think at the core of it, people are looking for a system to avoid owning who they really are at the core.
Mm,
And
mm,
polarity fits in with that. Like, okay,
mm.
cool, a man in a man's body. Yeah, great. You must lead now as a man. I'm like, okay, cool. I have to lead. And for me, that's been very uncomfortable for me. Not in a way that's I don't want to do it. It's not natural to me as an individual.
Interesting.
So, like in my relationship, we take turns leading, and it's not a conscious thing where we go, okay, now it's your turn to lead, and now it's my turn to lead. We just do. We have
Yeah,
natural gifts that,
yeah,
combined with a common vision of where we want to go, it just works.
yeah,
We just
yeah,
work. So by trying to force someone into a model of like masculine and feminine, and you create more neurosis. Like,
yeah,
again, it's someone who is very rigid would love that system because it justifies all of their neurosis about how a man needs to be and how a woman needs to be, but avoiding at the core, but when you were a child, even in the moment of conception, you're already being conditioned by your environment. And there's a version of you that exists outside of all of these systems of masculine, feminine, whatever. Um, and you need to discover what that voice is. And that requires you to be as a clearer vessel as possible. So all of the little things that you've got over the years, or even being dressed in boys' clothes as a boy, or whatever it is, whatever the messages
yeah,
that you receive, being able to decondition from all of those and just discover what's really right for you. And it will be a natural ebb and flow between like a masculine, in inverted commas, masculine and feminine dynamic, where you just allow yourself to be. And then when you allow yourself to be, you tune into something else that's beyond system. And when you create from that place, it touches and speak from that place, it touches people in ways that you could never script. You could never, like, it's
yeah.
profound. Like the music and the art that I create when I'm in that place is profound. So
Mm.
again, in summary, it's a reiteration of neurosis. And I think
I
it's
was
got,
actually
yeah.
I was quite touched, actually. I mean, my eyes were welling up when you first said what you said, because I mean, part of that is like, well, it's sort of confirmation of what I feel deep inside, in terms of, like, exactly. Can't even paraphrase it, but you said it like perfectly, in terms of how I feel about it. It's like someone not really wanting to take ownership of who they are. And but I'm amazed how much this has become seemingly epidemic. I mean, to totally assuage oneself of their own, again, will or agency. It's just like, I can't wrap my mind around. It's really hard for me to wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
I'm honestly having a really hard time with that.
I think what's happening, it's part of the journey to the evolution of consciousness, to look at things that we've gone too far.
Yeah,
It's too
yeah,
far. Great. This was a concept way back when, and we've distilled it, like the way we typically try and distill it down to its like atomic level, but miss out on all of the nuances between the two atoms, right? And then let's apply it to our lives. And if you're a rigid person and you don't like chaos, it's chaos. But don't, like, avoid wanting to be in the chaos of themselves. Like, there is no answer.
yeah, yeah.
They'll always look to a solution, whatever system it is. And that the epidemic is not being able to death again.
Mm.
just
Yes,
be,
yeah,
just be willing to die.
yeah. And no, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, the idea of who we think we are has to die.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Over and over again. I think there's a freedom. There's a freedom that can be found when you have a relationship with death, like a proper relationship with death. Like a lot of the questions that I ask my clients is, how would you like to die? If they're stuck and confused, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. It's like, great, cool. How would you like to die? Who would you
Mm.
like to have around you when you die? What would be the memories that you'd like to leave with people in death?
Yeah.
And then that having that other point of like a point of exit, you automatically start to cascade back down your timeline to where you're at right now. How do you aim for that?
Mm.
But that question can be a real shock to people, where death is really like quite taboo.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
I'll speak like anything that's related to death, terminal illness, suicide, whatever it is.
Yeah.
People are, oh, you got to warn people, John, before you speak to them. Why? Like it's happening around us every day. Like,
Yeah.
and then like we can lose so many people that are close to us. Oh, we didn't see it coming. We never saw this guy was, or woman was going to take her life. It's like, yeah, but you never see death coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it's been a practice for me to always tell if I love someone, tell them that I love them. If I'm angry at someone, tell them that I'm angry at someone. At least that way
Mm.
I know that I'm always being authentic with myself in whatever my emotional state is towards people that I value.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm living a half life. I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid to express what's really there for me.
I also like what you said about the fluidity of that, how that just happens, sort of, in the sense of like there is no script, but it's just like, you know, I'm trying to think of a time where when I've had to take the lead, I do. It's a no-brainer. I mean, when it's contextually quote unquote right, it happens. It just simply happens. But it's not like, oh, well, wait a second, I have a penis. I am male. I have, you know, it's what I should do. um, yeah, yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is fascinating. And like you can go to a men's group and you'll be surrounded in a room with other people with dicks, and they all want to lead. And it's like, well, you can't all lead. That's not how it
Yeah,
works. You know, someone needs to take the lead, and sometimes that leadership is given to the person or it's consented. But if you're in a massive people, the dynamic that plays out with, oh, now I can lead because of this is my credentials. I've got a master's in management. Okay, great. So, but that doesn't mean you can lead,
yeah,
right? So, and there's all these nuances that come up where our mind will want to justify how we should lead or shouldn't lead. And yeah, in that example, that when it's time for me to lead, I'm like, yeah, there's no question. There's an embodied authority that comes through me, and then I'll know
yeah,
when it's complete. I'm like, cool, put my
yeah,
leadership hat on, go do the thing, and now it's time to take it off and like go make some coffee or whatever it is. You know, it's like
yeah,
now it's time for me to put my feet up. But
yeah.
my default state is a net feminine state where
Mm,
I'm in either in contemplation or I'm still, and then I know when I need to act, whether it's like create podcasts, whether it's create a to-do list, whether it's go reach out to clients, whatever it is. But for the most time, I'm feminine for most
mm,
of the time, and that gives me my vitality.
mm,
When I wake up and I push, like I've tried this. I'll push, wake
yeah,
up, do my exercises, like do my thing. My body becomes sore and brittle, and I cannot be present. I get really impatient with people if they're not in my schedule. But when I'm in a bit more of a flow state, I have so much time for people, and it's those conversations when I have that time that change my life and their life.
mm,
I was like, cool.
mm,
I go to the corner shop and sit down and have like a chai or a muffin or whatever it is, and I'll just meet someone there. And those conversations what reminds me of what it's like to be human. Like, oh,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
connecting with people. This is what it's like, and beyond um, the superficial conversation, like what's really underneath all those conversations.
yeah.
Reminds me of a conversation I had with a woman a few weeks ago. I was introduced to her by the local cafe owner. Became a father late last year, and
Mm,
she said, "Oh, I had a son a few months ago. Now I'm going back to work, but it's really hard for me because X Y Z X Y Z. Like it's hard for me to be in this job." And I was like, "Have you ever thought about starting your own business?" And we just had a conversation around her wanting to start her own business and where she's at with that. So for me, there's when you authentically speak in whatever state that you're in, whether it's masculine or feminine, the outcome is beyond what the system tells you that you should be doing. Like, oh, I'm a man, I should just strike up a conversation with this woman. No, when I just left
mm,
the space, I was naturally introduced to her by the cafe owner. And there's a thread. What I hear is like there's a thread of like intuitive, instinctive nature that you can touch on, and when you start to be the vessel for that, like your life is different. Life is
Yeah.
very, very different. And
Yeah.
what's been your experience of just trusting that flow? And
I mean, I know what you're pointing to, no doubt, no doubt. I guess I would like to say that I'd like to be there more often. And it's interesting because I'm working a lot now with like sort of limbic brain and a bit of dealing with sort of some generalized anxiety and stuff, and that's obscuring that a bit. It's obscuring that thread, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's effortless. It's absolutely effortless. It's just simply a matter of oh God, what is? I mean, there. I don't even think of it as a doing. It's. I would say it's just more of an allowance. I mean, there needs to be a level of awareness out there, but it's simply an allowance. But yeah, I'd probably like it to happen more often than it is currently. But I think again, that's a lot because I'm just this generalized anxiety that I'm currently dealing with is sort of obscuring that.
mm,
So, and I'm working with that, but that's something that I had COVID. Well, I'm not sure if I had it twice, but I had it end of 2021, and I had a bout of something last year, and COVID messed me up a bit.
right.
I think it did some funkiness with the brain, and not exactly sure. Sort of still like again, it's been a while, but I'm still trying to sift through whatever that is. But it did a bit of a number on me in that way.
What somatic symptoms are you experiencing?
Um, Faster heart rate.
Yeah.
This feeling of I call it ennui. This feeling of I feel like I can't take in enough air, and I feel like I have to really make a concerted effort at times to to fully allow a full breath in.
Wow.
But I would say mostly pounding, faster heart rate, and then a bit of brain fog and sort of lack of clarity at times.
Yeah, wow, Paul. Yeah, right. So yeah, that that fast heart, automatically putting that body in that anxiety state, and the shallow breath, like not being able to take that, like like introducing panic and other like sensations, and the mind fog too. Of like, oh,
Yeah,
I can't get, I'm unable to get clarity right now because I'm not having full access like I used to. Wow, that would be incredibly disorientating. Yeah, wow.
yeah. It's unfortunate because I mean I know a lot of people that have had it a lot worse, but it definitely there was definitely a shift after COVID.
Mm,
So yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out. And it's actually it's affected my playing a bit because
right.
I feel like I'm a bit hypersensitive. So yeah, it's definitely I would say a dysregulated. My nervous system is a bit dysregulated.
Mm.
So yeah, trying to get back to what you were pointing to earlier about homeostasis.
Yeah. Wow. It's a real challenge when there's something else that's happened to the body and it's throwing you off kilt, like off tilt.
Yeah,
How do I get back to where I was? Yeah, right now. If that happened to me, like I'll be frustrated because I'll be like, fuck, like, I was in a zone before, and now my body is betraying me. There's like this, like, what do I need to do? What supplements do I need to take? What exercises
yeah,
can I do? Like, what can I do to clear this from me? Um, yeah,
yeah. I'm
well,
in the process of all that.
yeah, right. It sounds like it's almost like I took care of a woman for a few years who had a chronic illness. And there was so many times where she needed to die to who she was. And she'd flick through photos of her like in her 20s and when she's running around on the beach, and now she's like bedridden. And it was a real challenge for her to be with where she was at right now. Like so much grief
Hmm.
to be with all of that, and the frustration of the medical system too, where there's didn't have answers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, this dying to because I'm there has been a lot of stuff also that's come up through the therapy. Like for example, again talking about dating relationships, I hadn't been on really any apps for quite some time, and recently just joined Bumble. And I hadn't been on for maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And initially I got a bunch of matches. And just one day I was really, really nervous. And I was like, what the fuck is this nervousness? And it was the potential of meeting these women. And I had never really experienced that before. And I was like, holy shit, what's going on here? And I had a date last night. And again, same thing, potential of intimacy. Well, Paul, you're you're getting anxiety about being seen and seeing, and it's like, and I hadn't quite ever perceived it this way. So it's like it's a whole new world to me in a way, because if it's like I like to think that I'm a pretty aware person, but like this is like happening on a different level. Like this is really somatically affecting me. Like I'm really noticing this fear of getting intimate again. And I was like, I never felt myself as that way.
Mm.
So it's like a new world. So it's been interesting. And also, like I finally have put, being very transparent on this podcast for people to see, but I'm really sort of also coming to grips and really acknowledging and owning why have felt a call to even, meet with women, etc. And if I'm being honest, it's a lot of it is around, I have used women as a way to shore up this feeling of okayness about myself, and um to make me feel lovable and wantable. And I had never put my finger on that before. And now, so there's a huge amount of liberation around that. like like there's not that desperation and need to have that mirroring, but there's still that element of like, in a way, I don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to be that way. I don't quite call it shame, but I don't want to be that way. I don't want to objectify women. I don't want to use women.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that,
So
Paul. Thank you. And thank you for being so transparent. I hear your heart is opened it's like it's
thank you.
opened in a big way. And I want to ask you, so if you don't feel like if you're not going to use women anymore to prop up your self-esteem or whatever it is, how would you be treating women?
Well, I really do think, and again, I hate to use anything as an endpoint or a conclusion, but I really do think what I'm striving for, if I want to call it that, is for healing, for healing of myself and other, but to really try to mirror the other in a pure way, and striving to unconditionally accept and love them is really that's my sort of, if I want to call it, new purpose in that whole arena. But really about healing, I think, because I think it's necessary, and I think it's deeply needed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
So
I heard you say healing, and what I also heard in that was remembering, like remembering that, oh wait, you're showing me parts of myself that I don't love yet, and vice versa, and
yeah,
I'd love to work on this together. Like you're not my therapist, but I do want connection. Like I
yeah,
do
yeah,
want something here. There's something that's worthwhile speaking about and moving forward together in something. I don't know what it is, but that's beautiful. It is
yeah.
needed, solidly needed.
And
Uh,
also, I appreciate. I mean, again, I feel myself being moved. I appreciate the mirroring from you as well. Because I can feel that. So I thank you.
yeah,
That's
you're welcome.
it's touching.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I really I love hearing you speak. There's something in your voice that's very reassuring, and there's a vulnerability that I can hear in your voice. It's like I don't have the answers, and I'm willing to look. Like I don't got the answers, and I'm willing to look. It's like
Oh yeah, yeah,
a humbleness and curiosity and excitement. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this is right. Here we go again. Like it's great. Yep, awesome. Let's do this.
Here we go again. Yes, that's apropos. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, big time. Yeah, because
Paul.
I mean, in talking, I'll shut it after this. But after
Yeah.
that, in the date, we were both talking about that, like about just like, why can't we just be, accepting of our humanness and our imperfections, and just, love each other that way? Like, why is that so freaking hard? Why? It's just, again, I see so much, like, the checklists and the narrow-mindedness of like, only this one thing can give me that in which what I'm looking for. It's just sort of, and it needs to be a man who's 6'2", and it's just yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is fascinating. And I hear death again. I'm like, die to your control. You don't
Mm,
really know what you need until you've got it,
mm,
right? So this person could be like in Bumble, for example, you get a great match. He looks really good on paper, blah, 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 blah. You meet in person, there might not be a connection, right? Or you do meet in person, you're like, oh wow, like, yeah, sure, you're 2 inches taller or 2 inches lower than what my ideal height is, but I can really feel you. The way you're speaking to me is doing things to my body that I feel
mm.
safe. I
Yeah.
feel safe listening to you, speaking to you, and then if it escalates into physical intimacy, there's another death. And then after the physical intimacy, there's another death. And then the concept of whatever you thought the relationship was from Bumble to now is also another death. And then what's the life that you're aiming towards? Like that's my thing is like, where's the
Mm,
those are all
mm,
beautiful, beautiful moments in time. And then what's the life that you want? What's because really anything's available if you're willing to die.
mm, mm. What's if you don't mind me asking, what's your relationship to death?
Yeah, great. So my relationship with death is I surrender. I've surrendered so much to life. It came to me very early. My granddad died when I was at 7 years old, and he was like a surrogate father to me. Because my dad worked a lot. I spent so much time with my granddad, and we flew out from England when I was 5 years old, and those first like 5 to 8 years was spent with my granddad as being the father figure for me. Like there was an unconditional love with him. And when he died, I was devastated, and that was the first moment I felt like I'm never going to see this person again.
Mm,
I've had multiple iterations of experiences of death. Like my brother was diagnosed with a leukemia when he was in preteen, and facing my potential brother's death, being in hospital. And then when I started doing more of this inner work, death of my identity over and over and over and over and over again.
yeah.
Of like, cool, who am I now? Before I did this, I was in corporate for 17 years, operations
Oh,
manager.
wow.
And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like I'm an operations manager. Look at me with all of my credentials here and all the
Yeah.
skills and all of my achievements and accolades. And then in my relationships, it meant dick. It meant absolutely nothing. Like in my
Mm,
relationships, because I couldn't relate to people. I was emotionally disabled. Uh,
wow.
so I needed to die to that identity of being an operations manager and having all these credentials. So cool. I'm starting on the bottom of the lung of the bottom of the rung of the ladder again,
Wow.
and then taking plant medicines as well has helped me with death, knowing that I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'm going to change. And then the people around me. So with identity changes, knowing that when I'm changing my identity, the people around me are going to potentially change as well. So there's security around friends and family, and whenever they want to remind me of who I was, and that's not who I am anymore.
Yeah.
I'm no longer the John that had the credentials of the corporate job and owned his own house. I sold my house to pursue what I'm doing now,
Mm,
and being able to die to anything that is not serving me, and then in a sacrificial point, knowing that if I do need to step into a place to protect my family, that I will be willing to do that, and that my body in itself is just an expression of something much bigger.
yeah.
And if I'm always
Yeah.
trusting that thread that I'm listening to, it's like, yeah, cool. Like John, the vessel that is John will die. And whatever ripples that he sent through consciousness will always be there. But however, this meat suit will just be no more.
Yeah.
And then I'll incarnate again as something else. I won't necessarily remember John, but I'll just be another expression of the divine and so on and so on and so on until we reach whatever that endpoint is.
Mm. Can I ask? Because I know maybe you don't remember. I mean, it was a very brief talk because I picked out a little bit of like some of the foundation of your work. Like I'm guessing again, but like Lowen, is it Reich? I mean, would you
Yeah,
would you?
Reich, Lowen, and Parakos, the main. the three main players. Yeah, Alexander Lowen, Wilhelm Reich,
Yeah, who was the last one you mentioned?
John Parakos.
Oh, got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know too much about Reich. I think I've read most of Lowen's books, but I find that stuff such beautiful work.
Yeah,
Um, and again, I mean, the fact that we try to, even if we even think that we can separate out body mind, I mean, so the fact that it definitely didn't start there, but it was definitely a evolution of that. Yeah, I think it's beautiful stuff.
totally. Yeah, Alexander Lowen, some beautiful, and him as a man. Like if you watch some of his videos, such an open-hearted man, and
Mm,
he gets the human condition. Like he gets it in a way that you can't help but open up to him,
mm,
because his compassion for everything that it means to be human is present. But
mm,
all of his books are incredible. From um, a betrayal in the body, and this all the things. It really speaks to the crux of where we think mental illness is. Like,
mm,
but it's we've missed something. Where we've gone on a tangent, assuming it's all brain and all brain chemistry. But there really is a body tie back, like in the armoring and your character, what he refers to as character, where
mm.
your bodily defenses appear in your body as a character. So when you're describing the conductors, like I can see someone who is like almost perfectly symmetrical and rigid, uh, with movements that are not they're not fluid in a way that you would expect in someone who's slightly more relaxed.
Yeah,
But yeah, it shows up like who you are as a child. It shows up as who you are as an adult, unless you want to get some deep tissue massage or do some body work.
interesting.
Mm.
I tried reading Prakos's book. I didn't have an easy time with it.
Yeah, Parakos and Eva's work, they went on a tangent.
Mm,
So I found my mentor studied under John Parakos. So I
mm,
got a lot of inside line technologies on core energetics and bioenergetics and Reich's characterology. But yeah, very interesting man. And yeah, he took his work on a tangent that this didn't appeal to me anymore. But Lowen's work, super grounded, and heart focused. And then Reich
mm.
as well. Reich went on a tangent as well. Reich went off into like his orgone and energy
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but his initial work on the relationship between body and neurosis, um, groundbreaking.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll have to dig in that.
It's thick, like it's old German translated into English, and
Is that would that be his character analysis book? Or
character analysis. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
So it's a it's heavy reading.
yeah,
Otherwise, I prefer Lowen. He's much a bit more human.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, I feel you. I feel
Paul,
you.
is there anything else you want to share or ask me?
No, this has been great. God, I didn't realize you were going to throw such great questions at me. Um, no, honestly, nothing else is popping up right now.
Fantastic.
But really,
Then
really, really appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I've loved this conversation too. It's different to what my normal conversations are. And
Mm,
I like the mix. I like the mix of like I love this conversation. It was
no, thank you,
perfect.
thank you,
It was a symphony. The symphony for me.
thank
Much
you.
love, Paul. Thank you so much for being here.
Much love to you too.